Welcome to Dr. TSPR show. This is Dr. Tangella Shiva Prasad Reddy alias Dr. TSPR. Namaste, Adab, hello, and a warm welcome to Qamar Agaji. He's a defense analyst, and I would call him a strategist because let me not restrict him to one because of his wide experience, and he's very committed to the cause. The cause here is simple. Now, what is happening across the globe? The House Speaker Nancy Pelosi lands in Taiwan. China warns her, says war is imminent. But is it just nothing but warmongering in the name of the fallout after Ukraine? Both countries.
Yeah.
And then is it to divert the bilateral economic crisis which both countries are facing, and even the health crisis, which is just hampering how you have seen US is divided, how zero tolerance now new game China is trying to play. Are these the main reasons? Yes, Agaji.
Yeah, all these. You see, all these factors are there. There's no doubt about it. The health problem issues are there. Then the economy is a factor. Then, above all, the Americans don't want Russia and China come closer, because if they come closer, then it becomes a very strong force. The Russia and China both have access to very sophisticated technology, especially in the field of defense. Russia is also picking up very fast, and Russia is also going into manufacturing of other products, for civilian use, like civil aviation, or for that matter, this for that matter, is pharmaceutical. And China is already there, for different reasons or different areas, Almost all. China policy is, China doesn't want to be dependent on any country, whereas it wants other countries to be dependent on China. So that is the Chinese policy, or that is the policy of President Xi Jinping. So that's how China is providing. And war would be devastating, and would engulf the whole region or maybe more, because these are the two powerful armies. The American and now the Chinese are also quite powerful. Plus other countries would be dragged in and would spread to. I don't think the war would take place, it's just the positioning, American want China to remain engaged in this region so that it will not play a greater role or major role in Ukraine war. That is American and Chinese thing is that they want. The policy, Xi's policy is to regain control over Taiwan, the whole of Taiwan peninsula, the strait, as well as the Taiwan region, So that is how they are proceeding, and Nancy Pelosi's visit is taking place in this background.
But here, now I'm trying to play first the Chinese threat, and they said war is imminent. And again, what China says is the sanctions. It says it has, irked by Pelosi's visit, China begins trade sanctions against Taiwan.
China has always been using these threats from the time of Mao. Mao always used to issue a threat every day to the Americans, at that time, and when it was very weak. Their military power was very small compared to America, or compared to, even for that matter, many other countries. But Mao used to issue threat to Americans, Western Europeans, on a daily basis. That was their style of functioning of Communist Party of China. And they are saying big things, playing with fire, playing war would take place. These are the extreme steps, which they are taking in the beginning itself, even when the visit was not started. And now she is there, We don't see any war taking place. We don't see any. But one thing, that he has moved, China has moved its armada or its naval ships around that region. But I don't think they'll be able to enter into Taiwan, because that will have far-reaching consequences on the growing economy of China.
She's already
Then the
back.
China would,
Now she's back, landed and back. Now, displeased by how US housekeeper Nancy Pelosi's visit to Taiwan, China on Wednesday, announced to halt the exports of natural sand to the island. And how citing the Chinese Ministry of Commerce, when they are saying commerce means it's dual, both ways. And if they are halting the exports, don't you think it is China which is going to be badly affected now? It is suffering now. See how the banks have been, people have been for the first time in China after Tiananmen Square incident. We have seen people in China protesting in front of the banks. How these Chinese responded with military.
China, they don't have a democracy, rule of law. We have seen what they have done in earlier, Tiananmen Square. They just suppressed the pro-democracy movement. And similarly, they will do it again if it comes. But, entering into Taiwan is different thing. That would, because China is highly dependent on Western nations. It has a major export to Europe and America. Besides this, the American economy is also would suffer if war takes place, because China's investment in America is huge. China has invested in almost many sectors of the American economy. So therefore, both would not like to have or go to extreme step, I think. So, this posturing is for the people of China. They just, President Xi wanted to show that he's a very strong man. He doesn't want to compromise. And these steps, push nationalism in China. And China, the nationalism is very deep rooted. So this will divert the attention from COVID-19 and other shortcomings to Taiwan. The Americans also wanted to divert some attention from Ukraine to Taiwan. It suits both of them, I see. And he has taken tough action, tough talks, from the American administration side, and he has sent Nancy Pelosi is visiting despite the Chinese opposition. So these things, are basically, elections are drawing near in America. The Senate elections and the governor election would take place in a number of states. So therefore, this war mongering suits both of them, I believe. I don't know. I mean, this is what my personal perception.
So Taiwan hit back, stating that Taiwan won't back down amid China threats. Taiwanese President Tsai Ing-wen has said that Taiwan will not back down amid military threats from China after it announced major maneuvers near the island over the visit of US House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Pelosi said she had come to the region in peace and that the United States would honor its pledge to defend the democratic island under threat by Beijing. Today, our delegation came to Taiwan to say unequivocally that we will not abandon our commitment to Taiwan and that we are proud of our enduring friendship, said Pelosi.
No, they will not send the forces. For America, I believe the Ukraine is much more important than the Taiwan, because that is in Europe, and where the most powerful American allies are there. And Russia is engaged in a war. I mean, even in Ukraine, they have not committed their war, their forces. They said, okay, we will support Ukrainian army. Similarly, they will do the same thing in Taiwan also. Taiwan, they are committed. They said earlier also that we are not fight for Taiwan, but we will support. There's no such a resolution or decision so far, and there is no change in American policy as far as Taiwan is concerned regarding war or regarding these things. So therefore, I believe, they would support from outside, and I don't see, because war would be very devastating for both American as well as Chinese, because the whole region would be dragged in. Japan, South Korea, North Korea, uh, Taiwan, Singapore, all these powerful nations, and then, this is America will have to defend democracy so much more vigorously. And challenge is there, but I doubt, because war means, once the war starts, you cannot end it. That will continue for a longer period of time, and that doesn't suit to neither American economy nor to uh, Chinese. The American economy is also facing serious problems like inflation is more than 9%, economy is contracting, unemployment is growing. In a situation, stagflation is taking place. So in a situation like this, nobody would like to go for a war. But sometime what happens, it went out of control. This war mongering sometime went out of control. Um, that is a fear always. That's why tension of this level is not advised to build up. What Chinese have done, the full every day sending their planes over Thailand, Taiwan. They have surrounded the entire peninsula, rather, that region, and then the warships are there in that region. So that is not done, in a civilized world, with what China is doing. China has a style of functioning like this, big blow, and then, try to escape from that, but they cannot, they will never be allowed to control or take over. There is another problem, Mr. Reddy, that is Taiwan actually, uh, most of the countries believe it's a breakaway province of China. So everybody believes, it is a part of China. But what Americans and Indian and other powers are saying, that look, one day it will merge, but not through force, through means of public, referendum or something. And the problem is Taiwan people are totally different from the mainland China. They are highly sophisticated society, very educated, and computer savvy. Then secondly, uh, they have built a beautiful society over there. People are rich in that country, and they have access to a lot of sophisticated technology, which they are exporting it to many countries, including India, like chips, computer chips, and other things. Plus, they are culturally also uh, separated from China. Now they might have been sometime back was part of China, but not now. Secondly, similarly, I've been there, is Hong Kong. Look at Hong Kong people now, large number of people trying to migrate from the country. They cannot live there. They're used to freedom. They were used to a certain standard of living. Now that has all been curbed by the Chinese Communist Party. That, and I think, the international community should put pressure on China not to enter into uh, Taiwan, because that would be fatal, because that way, the China would be isolated in the international community.
But the main, after we have seen Ukraine, but the way we have done 2 shows on that also, how badly it is going to affect. But even after that, we have not seen any major surge on the part of Western unions, including European Union, to combat China vis-a-vis Ukraine or Russia. It is just mongering and nothing else. Now China says it will stop exporting sand, as you rightly said, chips and all, quartz and everything is made out of that. So when they are trying to threaten that, and when China has bilateral huge business in Europe and United States of America, huge business it has, and it has its economic
both are
vice versa.
In the age of globalization, both are interdependent. The problem is, these are just a mere threat. If I believe, China would do not take these threats seriously, because that would bring disaster. Not only that, the global economy would suffer if the war takes place. Already, because of Russian Ukrainian conflict, see how the oil prices have gone up, how the food prices are going up, which are uncontrolled, and inflation are rising, not only in America or all over the world, or Western Europe, So every country is affected, So similarly, if China goes to war, what would happen? I hope China would realize the magnitude of this crisis and would not indulge in any adventurism. But we have seen China in the past indulging in adventurism. That is also, you're right, to an extent, have done this. But this would be very, cost China a lot.
This would cost China a lot. But at the same time, now let us examine the similarities between America and China. Now they are trying to champion, they are going to play out all these warmongerings. In America, the elections are slated to be held for gubernatorial posts as well as Senate. And now the crisis of COVID-19, it has deeply divided the American society. No one can say no. Even the federal courts have issued against the mandates of the federal government, whether it is transport or even Pfizer vaccines after effects revealed. And it has seen so many major effects and many people have died because of that. And what I mean to say, it was more fatal than the original disease itself. That is one aspect. The other aspect is the recession, economical recession, which has been hitting Americans a lot. Now, when you come back to China, for the first time after Tiananmen Square protest in 1989, if I'm not wrong, for the first time you have seen Chinese people on the roads protesting the scam in the banks there in a huge way. For the first time you have seen. And then in the name of zero tolerance COVID. So some similarities, both US as well as and China. How do you look at this scenario? Are both the countries big economies, and both are interdependent? Both are not trying to fool the entire world by trying to hijack the basic issues?
No, the difference between the two is great, where America is a free enterprise, and whereas China, it's a controlled economy, basically. They have both the systems, the Western as well as the free economy also, the liberalization they have introduced. But overall control over economy, we have seen, is with the government control. So we see in the past, how number of companies or executives of different companies were arrested, sent jail, and pressure was built up on private industry in China. America, you don't see these things. America is a free society, and secondly, they have media, free media, where everything comes out in the newspaper. You can't hide anything from there. They have different political parties, especially two major political parties, where China is only one party, which is totally controlling everything, the army, the people, the media, and things. So comparison would not be fair, between the two.
After COVID-19, you have seen the governments over the world over, especially America and China, they're having same zero tolerance towards the public and the mandates they're enforcing with no science, no logic, in spite of the federal court orders. And don't you think both are now into a deep economical recession, and both the countries where people are rising now above this thing. Now people are not tolerating the suppression there in China in the name of COVID. And you have seen the bank scams that has come a way out for them to come out and protest. And here in America, the same recession is happening. Everything has become costlier now. And then the American state, the entire country is divided on the mandates also. Fearing.
When the recession comes, they take tough measures, But American have money, they will come up with the stimulus packages, we have seen last time. And but this time would be difficult for them. Because already they have invested trillions of dollars in infrastructure projects and many other things, to create more jobs and other things. And on top of that, the war takes place, then, the American economy will go down. Further recession and many other problems will face. I think that oil crisis will continue as long as the war is there, as long as Russian oil is not coming to the market, economy will continue to contract, even in Europe and America. And I'm not talking about what is happening in developing countries, even worse. So therefore, I hope the American and Chinese both realize there must be some talks going on behind the scene. You never know. Some thing. And I'm sure the visit will pass off peacefully, and things would gradually settle down. And this type of statement will continue to come from America, Washington, and Paris, London, and then other capitals of Western Europe against China, and China would continue do the same thing with issuing harsh statement against America.
Because you are a defense strategist, you know the defenses of China and all. And don't you think this way both will try to again reshape the entire world through defense sales because of their severe economic crisis in the name of the visit of the speaker to Taiwan again?
Yeah, they try, but the people have no money to buy these expensive weapons because of recession, because of inflation, because of every economy is contracting. So therefore, they don't have money to buy, to go in for massive purchases, at least for next 2 to 3 years, till the settle down, because nobody knows the future, what would happen. If the war continues further and Russian oil, as I mentioned earlier, will continue to, stop or will not come to the market, the oil prices would come. Because oil is not a commodity which you can switch over from one country to another. You need infrastructure development for that. So therefore, the Germans, the French, and other, if these economies are further contracting, then it will have impact on America. And the American economy is already contracting. And once the Europe is in recession, then the whole world is in recession. Will go.
That's why I was asking.
It is an interdependent.
Yeah, interdependent. That is why the first question was: is it because of fallout of Ukrainian crisis, and that too winter approaching Europe and America? There, oil plays a major role. So, in the hindsight, don't you think this is the major reason, major cause for this both China and US to start doing all this warmongering to control? China wants to control Russia, and that
Americans
and America and European Union, both are interdependent. Entire,
you see, one thing is clear: the American objective was to change regime in Russia. America was hoping, the sanction would work, and Russian economy would contract, and there would be unrest in Russia. That hasn't happened. And now they're building, they don't want China to join Russia, as I mentioned earlier in my statement, because Russia, China coming together, then it becomes a very potent force which they don't want. Plus, as you mentioned, oil build up. In the end, what happened when negotiation will take place, they would say, build pressure on Russia not to indulge in certain activities, ceasefire, or maybe something more. Because Americans will not allow recession to take place, will not allow to go to that far. I suppose, I hope so. This is my common sense says, because if that goes, then there'll be a big problem for Biden, there'll be a big problem for Democratic Party, will lose for a decade or maybe more elections in America. Because last time when recession came in America, it was China which was pumping money into America, because Americans were worried, that if American economy goes down, so their economy would also be affected, because that's why they pump money. But this time they don't have money to invest there. So a lot of problem would be there. And some sort of settlement. There are already negotiations are going on in Ukraine. There are a number of proposals are coming up, a ceasefire, status quo, negotiation, but still, the time has not yet ripe for the Russians are taking a strong line, is not committing anything so far publicly. Maybe inside what is happening, we don't know. And secondly, the Ukrainians are also taking a very tough time. How long Americans would continue to support, or European nations will continue to support Ukraine? That's another problem.
The recession is happening at their own end, when their own unemployment prices are rising in America and Europe. How long they can support Ukraine? And not only that,
Yeah,
Don't
very
you think even this recession having impact on the dollar? Now Russia says, I will trade in my own currency. Now Chinese, they are building up their own yen. At this backdrop, even the gold being exchanged, at this backdrop, Americans are worried, European Union is worried, and similarly, these lines, Russia and China also worried. Is it because of this internal insecure feelings of these countries? All of a sudden, you see speaker flying to Taiwan to divert the world attention. All of a sudden, out of blue, American elections, because every time they do something related to China, American elections, if they have to win any election, or warmongering, immediately they say they have killed Zawari of Al Qaeda. All of a sudden,
Dr. Reddy, I know one thing, it has been proved in Iraq and Afghanistan, and before that in Vietnam also. One just cannot achieve its goal through military means. And secondly, the power has its own limits. America is the most powerful country on earth, economically and militarily both, But despite of all this, they have not been able to change regime in Iran. They have changed the regime in Afghanistan and Iraq, but unable to install a pro-American regime over there, and have not been able to achieve their objectives, and lost $6 trillion in Iraq and Afghanistan. If they go to the war with Iran, they would lose another $10 trillion because Iran is more powerful. Oil supply would be disrupted. And similarly, China is too big to be, I doubt, the American would go to that extent to fight a war. You see, when such statements are being issued at that time, the negotiations also going on. There is back channel diplomacy that must be at work. I'm sure, the Chinese have their ambassador in Washington and America, and plus the American have their representatives there in Moscow. Plus, there are many back channel sources which continues to talk at the same time with the Chinese, with the Russians, with everybody.
No, because now these warmongerings in the name of again arms proliferation, defense deals for all those businessmen to make again more money, to become more rich. In the midst of all these things, how do you see the role of United Nations? Only World Health Organization, they are minting money, they are creating fear and psychosis. United Nations now, the Security Council, what they are doing?
United Nations means Security Council.
Yes,
Security Council is divided.
Right.
So therefore, nothing will come from there. When they will talk outside and settle it, certain things, and then they go to the United Nations to formalize it, And secondly, the problem is coming, the Americans are using international institution in their favor. That is another. So new international order might emerge. That is the whole thing, Let's hope and pray for it, because this international order, which come into being after the Second World War, is collapsing virtually. Many middle power countries have emerged, and they have their own influence in their respective regions, or maybe more beyond their regions, like India, South Africa, Argentina, and there are many more, Brazil, Japan, Germany, they are all demanding, their share in United Nations Security Council, their membership in Security Council. So need has come, I hope, now the Americans would realize this thing, and Russians, Chinese, all of them, and expand Security Council membership, and so that these countries, play greater role.
Yeah, the mongering of a speaker visit to Taiwan is for democracy, but that democracy doesn't happen in United Nations controlled by America, or for that matter, Russia or China. They're big players. India doesn't get a place there. Democratic country. They talk about democracy, again, democratic movements in Taiwan. They have what has happened in Afghanistan of late. We have seen after Biden came to power, as and when election scenario happens, all of a sudden Al-Qaeda will become a big topic in America. All of a sudden China will become a big topic. Now here in the midst of Ukraine, now back, so much of oil diplomacy, winter approaching, fearing European Union crisis, severe crisis. American dollar in doldrums, American recession is there. Chinese recession, for the first time, they have seen people coming out and protesting after 1918 and Tiananmen Square incident. At this backdrop, United Nations being silent, no democracy, it vouches for democracy. What is the role of India? This is the
I
last.
think India should convene a meeting of all developing nations and put pressure on America, Russia, China, and all these countries. The same type of situation is developing when non-aligned movement was developed. I think India should also take a lead, and India has a reputation in Asia, Africa, both countries, and I think called a meeting. A consultation should be started. I mean, they should start consultation with various countries and build some pressure. This madness has to be stopped, and genuine demands of the Russia should be addressed, and genuine demands of the Ukraine should also be taken into consideration. Ceasefire and followed by negotiations, and that will, would, in that case, the developing nations, together with India and others, would have more bargaining capacity as we used to have. We will have much more bargaining capacity than during the non-aligned movement. Thank you.
Last one, sir. Last one. You have seen when Russia went to war, automobile industry came to a halt because they manufactured that chip, much required chip for that automobile industry. Now, when if Taiwan goes out of this thing, don't you think it will have a telling effect on the software industry, which Chinese are trying to destroy? Is it a policy of China, something like that? Or Americans again approaching Taiwan in such a way? Now Taiwan becomes a hotspot like Southeastern nations like Iraq, or for that matter, Afghanistan.
That is true, that certain economies will, or sectors of economy will suffer a major setback. Automobile industry is one of them, but you maybe, dependence. I believe that next 3 to 4 years, India and many other countries will not be having dependence on Taiwan or any other country for chips, because many countries are going to build, or started the process of building these chips, It's a matter of time, And yes, initially it will take, a setback, for not only the American Chinese, but it will have impact on global economy also. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, Mr. Agha, and wonderful to host you again. And this is for today. You have seen how the warmongerings will have a direct effect on the election scenario in the United States of America, and what is happening in China too. For the first time, people came out on roads and protested the bank scams. Yes, Indians also will come back later. And same way, recession of unemployment, price rise happening in US. The same thing is affecting China too, where you have seen everything has become costly and zero tolerance in the name of COVID. The same thing is happening in America. The states are divided. To escape from this, is this a new ploy of these two economic joints? And believe me, they are interdependent on both their economies are interdependent. When such is the case, will they dare to go for a war, or else again fooling the world with another topic, escaping from COVID-19 and this recession and the fallout of Russian crisis as winter approaches? European Union depends on Russian oil, and then the dollar diplomacy also failing. And this will be the right time, they thought, to come out with Taiwan issue. We only hope Taiwan will not go Afghan or other Iraq like. Let us hope that Taiwanese will become smart, and India also should play a strategic role, having conceded Ladakh or whatever it is. We are not on record. But when China is happening, Indians also should start their diplomacy to express their presence, because we are a big democracy. We are still a people participatory constitutional democracy, and I only hope United Nations Security Council will be revived to safeguard democracies in the world. Otherwise, these type of warmongerings, in that name, all those big weapon dealers will start making money. They will try to control the economies, and that will be a devastation for any democracy and the world too. Thank you very much, sir. Do support DRTSPR channels. Good night
Thank you.
from this show. Bye.